Our video today is taking a closer look at ADD, ADHD. I read something online that was so interesting quite a few years ago, but it has really stuck with me. This story told about a man named Dr. W. Edwards Demings. After Second World War, there was demand for automobiles in the USA, but apparently USA auto manufacturers were more interested in quantity than quality because they rejected Dr. Demings' ideas on how to improve the quality and production. So he said this in so many words: don't blame the people. Change the system that caused the problems in the first place. Now, what does that have to do with ADD, ADHD and its diagnosis? Well, a lot, a whole lot. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I cannot tell you whether you have ADD, ADHD or not, but I can tell you from my expertise in unique and personality traits, which are many, if you have any of the symptoms that the websites will tell you are symptoms of ADD and ADHD. So I can tell you that for the most part, or at least for many people, sitting and learning at a desk is probably the worst possible learning environment ever. Case in point, I was teaching a class on the various traits that people have which influence the brain and how it works, especially in a learning environment, and the behavior. So we were discussing how many folks are at such a terrible disadvantage in the current educational environment, when a woman raised her hand and shared what happened to her son. She told how her son was getting bad grades and continually being in trouble with the teacher and bringing home notes about his behavior and so on that were not very favorable. She told us that the following year he had a teacher that understood the physical needs in the classroom. The teacher allowed her son to sit on top of the desk to do his work where it was more comfortable. His schoolwork dramatically changed for the better, and no more notes from the teacher about his behavior. So, yes, I think we need to change the system and not the kids or people. So let's talk about some of the traits that you might have that influence how your brain works in various environmental settings. I cannot go into all the traits, but I have written a book that hopefully will come out pretty soon that will cover the traits that are involved in learning. Okay, the first trait is body style. If you have longer legs and a shorter torso, then you are built to think better when you are sitting down. If you have a longer torso and shorter legs, you are built to move around, and in fact we call that trait restlessness. It is easier to stand and your brain just will not work after a while when you're sitting down. So you can see that right there we're starting with only one trait, and we've got a problem here in learning. How some children or adults can learn and sit for a long period of time and not have a problem, and others have a horrible problem. Okay, so the second trait is called physical restlessness or physical stamina. And this person is better thinking on their feet. They move around. They need to move around and are not good sitting down. So now we have two traits here that we're working with: the longer torso, and then we have this trait of physical restlessness. And so if you have a person that has both of these traits, why on earth would you think that this person could do well sitting at a desk for any period of time, and especially for hours at a time? Then, to make it more challenging, we have another trait called physicalness. This trait inclines your body to express and react physically in the moment. Goodness, what if a person had all three of these traits? Believe me, there are plenty that do. Sometimes a teacher will even keep a child like this during the recess because they are moving around too much. And of course, they make this child sit quietly at a desk. Now, since the child has an overwhelming need to move around, then what on earth will happen to a child who is also made to sit quietly for a period of time when they need to be learning for the rest of the day? I like to observe people on the TV and different people, and I would like you to watch Tony Robbins. Can you imagine him having to sit at a desk for long periods of time, and even more so when he was younger? He is a motorized human being. He has all of those traits to move around and to be restless and all that energy that exudes from him. On the other hand, there is a particular preacher that I have observed over the time who has long legs, and believe me, he does not move far from the podium for very long. And I noticed as he's gotten older that somebody has actually made a podium where he can sit behind the podium, and then he just gets up once in a while to move around to show a little energy. Very smart to do that, because people who have long legs oftentimes have problems with their legs, varicose veins and so on. And so it's a really good thing that he was able to do that. Now, there are also other traits that control how our brain works and how we work in a learning setting. So the one trait that I would like to talk to you about is high concentration and low concentration. It's the same trait. It's that some people have a lot of natural concentration and others are very low on concentration, or they might be in between, but we're talking about the highs and the lows at this time. So the person with high concentration, they get so concentrating on something that has caught their attention that they do not hear the teacher give instructions or whatever. They get so engrossed in what they're doing. And then we have low concentration. Now you would think, oh my goodness, low concentration is really a drawback, but it actually is not. It is a wonderful thing. In fact, our world would be in deep trouble if we did not have people with low concentration, because the person with low concentration can change focus quickly from one person or one thing to another. And when that happens, you get to see what's going on. You get to see, like, if something is about to fall on you, or if there's a fire, or if somebody's not doing their job, or anything that shows, production is low or something. They pick it all up very easily. In fact, their brain is made to work very closely to what you would call multitasking. And they say that it's actually impossible to do that, but people with low concentration can actually multitask at least a lot better than the other people. So all of these things are important, and it's important to understand that all of these traits are your gifts. They're not drawbacks. There was a young man that my daughter met, and he was, I think, 23 years old, and he was told that he had ADD and ADHD by one doctor, but the mother decided to go to a different doctor, and she did. And he said, "No, I don't think so." He says, I think your son is just intelligent and very active and needs a lot of activity and challenge." So this woman got up at 5 o'clock every morning, and she worked with her son and wore him out doing so many things. And here he was at age 23. He could speak 3 languages. He could play 3 instruments, musical instruments, and he was a triathlete. So I wonder how he would be if the mother didn't take the time to really help the child fulfill his destiny and his abilities. Now, here are a list of traits that reveals challenges in the learning situation. Keep in mind that each trait is also a gift. So these are traits that will come up in these symptoms. The need to be outdoors. Some people need to move around and they need to be outdoors a lot, and they feel very closed in inside. Some people tire very easily when they are around others, and so these classrooms where lots of children are there and several teachers, it actually is very tiresome to some children, because some people are built to be more of the loner, and they're not good around people. Then we have the abstract thinkers. Now, these are very intelligent students who are often classed as slow learners because they tend to complicate the class material. They overcomplicate, and because they're thinking way upon the off the mark. And then we have learners who need more hands-on and subjects that they can learn by rote, and so they can't compete one with another. And then we have the trait that inclines a person to space out and kind of be out in la-la land. And then we have a trait that makes it very uncomfortable to tolerate negative situations altogether. They just don't endure well in anything that is negative to them. And then we have the submissive trait, where these people are very overwhelmed by problems, and they tend to give up easily and throw in the towel. And then we have sequential learners, and these are people who need to have everything done and given to them by sequence. And they're very thorough, and they're can be very intelligent, but they appear not to be so. And then you have the opposite of that, the highlight thinkers, and they get bored really easily when a teacher starts to go into a thorough study of a subject. So they tend to skim the surface and miss too much detail. Then there's a trait that inclines students to lose their temper out of frustration. And then we have traits that make it difficult for children to take turns, and they need more attention, and they need to, I guess, be more visible to others, and sometimes maybe be a show-off. Now, these are not all of our traits, but these are traits that influence learning. So, at my website, I have more information, and please take the time to look at those things. These are only some traits that can influence learning. See my website for more information on ADD and ADHD type traits that influence learning. The key here is that there are ways in which a person works with their traits in a learning situation by adjusting their environment and their method of learning. In my book, I go through all the symptoms that are listed on the websites that show how a person can work on these types of traits. And by understanding these symptoms, you can match them effectively with your behavior. And we can work hand in hand then with doctors and be able to utilize both fields. In my opinion, both are needed. And in my family, we use both. And there's times when you need a physician and a psychologist. There are times when you need someone that understands personality. So if you want to know about personality traits, learn about personality science, and you will find that it can really help your life and be a tool to help in your learning environment situation. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel. Bye.